Hi again. I want to give you some tips and ideas for managing the build-up to Christmas, first and foremost. Christmas seems to be extended every year, but there are steps you can take to reduce the likelihood of rising anxiety and resulting behaviours, and also to improve communication. Hi, it's Alison, consultant speech and language therapist, autistic spectrum disorder, complex needs. So let's begin. Firstly, my first tip is don't focus on the event too soon. Okay, so don't talk about Christmas in the household too early if you can possibly avoid it. Household, unit, daycare, service, wherever. If you need to discuss it, a good tip is to use a coded word. And also you may need to change this every few days. You can also quietly request that grandparents, visitors, friends also use the coded word when they visit in the days leading up to Christmas. Okay, so we often use things like on the you-know-what day, or that day we were talking about, just in conversation when we're talking about it, but we don't want to say it directly. Or we might even use a French word. So we might say, oh, Noel. And sometimes I might say that to the client, even though they might know what I mean, because it's in French, it's what we call indirect language. Therefore, it takes the pressure off. It takes the edge off the word and takes the pressure off, and so the emotional attachment as well. So either use a coded word or, in some situations you might use a French word or a German word or an Austrian word or whatever, just to take the pressure off the indirect. Use indirect language. Okay, so that's my first tip in how to avoid anxiety building up. Okay, the second tip is redirection. So if your client or your son or your daughter bring up the subject of Christmas too early, then you redirect them somewhere else. So you redirect them basically to an interesting and happy topic, something that they're interested in and makes them happy. So, for example, if the client says, it's nearly Christmas, or if somebody non-verbal is pointing to a lot of Christmas pictures or, giving you signs, perhaps they're signing to you about Christmas, you need to be kind of saying, yeah, nice. Right, now we need to text Auntie Jean, something like that, just to redirect them, get them onto a new topic. It's a useful little tip and it can work quite well. Because if you start going on and on about it too early, you're risking building anxiety up and you're going to be overloading somebody. My next tip is something to do with festive events. So don't take your client or your son or daughter to festive events too early. Pantomimes, concerts, try and leave it as long as you can before you do that kind of thing, and perhaps only go to one, as opposed to doing quite a few and starting it weeks beforehand. It depends on how good you think your client or son, daughter is at waiting. And you probably know this. Are they the kind of people that can wait for a week? Can they wait for 2 weeks? Can they only be told at the actual moment you're doing something? And you need to act and prepare accordingly. Because basically for people on the spectrum, Christmas has to be managed, okay? I know you want to share the joy of Christmas as early as you can, so do other people around you. But for people on the spectrum, Christmas has to be managed, okay? So leave it till as near Christmas as possible. Waiting, and I've just alluded to this, but work out with your team, family or otherwise, how long they can wait for, okay? And by waiting, I mean successfully waiting before they begin to become agitated, okay? If they start becoming agitated, that's not good waiting. We want the period of success they can successfully wait for, okay? And act accordingly. Tip 5, Advent calendars. Only have an Advent calendar really if in the house, if you know your actual son, daughter, client can wait for a month, because that's what Advent calendars are doing. They're counting down the days for a month. And for some people, even though they're not opening one themselves, but hearing other people talking about it can cause anxiety. If you buy them for siblings, perhaps, or other adults like me, I always get one, perhaps open them away from the person with autism, or in a private room. But bear in mind that people on the spectrum usually have amazing hearing, very acute. And when you think they can't hear you, they probably can. So be very careful on that front. Another thing you might try is back chaining. So, 1 year you might just allow them to open 22, 23 and 24 if you think they can cope with 3 days of it. Or it might just be 24 and 25, or just the one on the last one. And then over the years you back chain it, so you add perhaps another 1 or 2, and then another 2 or 3, another 3 or 4. And you can practice this kind of thing during the year, but not with Christmas stuff. But just back chaining in that way can be really useful for things like advent calendars, because slowly you build up a tolerance to waiting. Okay. Trimming the house and garden, tip 6. Okay. When decorating the house, leave it as long as possible again before you do it, if you can, because you don't want anxiety to be caused. So work out as a team what the wait time is. Okay, can you if your client asks you, or your son or daughter, when can we decorate? Can you, as a team, and it's got to be as a consistent team, can you say, oh, next week? Or does it have to be actually now when you're all ready to do it? Depends what the wait time is. Okay. You could also consider, only in this scenario, decorating minimal parts of the house to start with, and in areas where the client's son or daughter doesn't go to a huge amount. Or you could just think of adding 1 or 2 small decorations to start with, and then over the days that follow, adding another 1 or 2 in just subtle places, and slowly building up the decorations like that, rather than just suddenly doing the lot and potentially causing anxiety. Ensure that lights are not too garish, too bright, and sounds too loud, because people on the spectrum can get very overwhelmed by such decorations, and also decorations that are repetitive. Like you get these Santas that are constantly saying the same thing over and over. Be careful of those. They can become quite obsessive. If you buy a tree but aren't ready to put it up yet, my advice, and this is the next tip really, would be to store it out of sight. Okay, because people on the spectrum tend to have black and white cause-effect minds. So if they see it in their heads, it ought to be up. Okay. Now, what we found is as people on the spectrum get older, some of these things, obviously, they improve. But using visual evidence helps in slightly older people. For example, my daughter, we've got our tree at the moment. My daughter has seen it. We did start trying to hide it, but she spotted it because she's very good at stuff like that. But because it's got a net on still, I've been giving her the phrase, because the net's on, the branches are closed. And in her mind, cause effect, black and white, that means it's not going up yet because it's got its net on. Okay, so concrete evidence like that can be very useful, particularly with people who are a little bit older. Okay. And I do wish you a happy and peaceful, particularly peaceful Christmas. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.